Hello and welcome to TheWrap Studios. I'm Beatrice Verhoeven, and we're at the Toronto International Film Festival about to talk Motherless Brooklyn. We have the director and some of the cast members here to talk about it. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
And
for me.
You play the man with Tourette syndrome, and I was wondering how hard was it to calibrate, the verbal and physical tics of such a condition?
Tourette's, the really interesting and kind of beautiful thing about Tourette's is that it expresses itself in people in very individualistic ways. Mm-hmm. So some people have very modest physical twitches only and no vocal component. Some people have a subtle vocal component, and some people have kind of the cliche of the person who yells very inappropriate things. And people get fixated on different words. People's physical twitches are different. So in some ways, there was a great liberation for me in that I could come up with the blend of those things that I felt served this character in this story and be actually somewhat improvisational in the scenes. I would say that the upside of choosing to direct the movie was that I knew that I could be fairly freely experimental as an actor and shape and sculpt that myself later. In other words, if Willem was directing it, I might not have done some of the things I did because he might have used the bad stuff, but I knew I would use the good stuff. I think the thing that the book, the kernel, the heart of the book drove not only the film and the character, but the film itself. What Willem was intimating is it makes you feel empathy for this character. He's a character who has only one person in the world who sort of understands him, and the story is driven by the loss of that person. And in many ways, the film is about you go with this character you feel empathy for as he, in some ways, has to grow up and realize that the people who are heroes in the world are the ones who have chosen to care for other people, and in some ways, the darker forces of the world are the forces that are focusing on power and focusing on selfishness. And I think, to me, really great stories function on two levels. They sort of function on the emotional, empathetic level, and then there are ways that reverberates into what it says about who we are collectively. And I think that the allure of Lionel as a character to me was that the way that people treat him becomes sort of the metaphor for the larger things that are going on in the story in some ways.
And I believe most of your scenes are with that character as well, right? And I always find it so interesting when there's a director who's also playing the part, and you kind of have to transition from co-starring to then, having him direct as well. So I was wondering what that is kind of like for you during this process.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, Lionel, we see everything through Lionel's eyes, and I think it's almost like everybody, like a sort of a chamber orchestra, or everybody has their sort of moment with Lionel, and for me, I think it's quite a delicate balance, and delicate, sensitive relationship that sort of unfolds between Lionel and Laura. But as Willem was saying earlier, it's also kind of amazing because you also have the director right there, so it speeds up, the process of any shifts or changes or notes. It makes everything much more intimate.
But that only if you have actors who are very generous, very patient, and very nimble, because there's an unusual distortion when your scene partner is also just before the camera rolls whispering little things in your ear.
But that's cool because it makes
an
it
annoying
fluid.
Little mouse.
Yeah, I think it's cool because it makes it fluid, and you don't have this relationship where you're performing for an outside eye. That outside eye is in there with you, and you really become an extension of that person. And he's so much at the center, and those little whispering things are half the director, half the character. It's a beautiful way to bring the world, to personalize the world also for you, and takes away a certain kind of call and response sometimes that you have when you think of a director as being outside the story and being an outside eye and judging and guiding. Listen, the guiding's right there. You're with the guide.
There's a funny, I hadn't really thought about this, but my character does destabilize other people too. Their initial encounters with him, and so maybe on some level, if I'm rationalizing it to myself, the way he's a destabilizing force, maybe that's what I was. Maybe we were all being very method. Maybe we were being much more method than I thought we were the whole time.
Now in retrospect,
But I was amazed how quick you were. You know, he was everywhere. And that's not just flattery. It was kind of an amazing thing, being inside and outside at the same time.
That was